taking a legacy brand like Clearly Canadian and innovating and evolving it to be relevant to the next generation of consumers is really, a fun challenge to have. And knowing that there's so much affinity and emotional connection to the legacy consumer for this brand, how we build that for the next generation is really what I'm excited to unlock.
Decisions aren't built in straight lines. It's your career. They're shaped in moments of tension, the choice to stay or walk away, the promotion that comes with a price, the decision that changes everything. This is a podcast about those moments. I'm Sarah Jeanneau, and welcome to Why to the Way. What would you have done in the same situation? Hey, welcome back. In this episode, we actually got to speak to Jen, and Jen is the CMO of Clearly Canadian. So this is a brand that I'm sure you are all aware of, and is certainly something we talk about in the podcast, but it's certainly something for me that I have so much nostalgic value to. Now, of course, she is reshaping the brand today. And we talked to her not only about the nostalgic point of view of this brand, but we really dug into a little bit of where she started her career, the decisions she's made. And she's actually had some pretty cool pivots here, pivoting from some pretty big brands that you're going to recognize, and also a tech play right there in the middle. Really cool story. And it's an incredible opportunity to hear about what your goals are and how those goals can pivot and change as your lifestyle changes with it. So excited to have you listen. And does everyone tell you stories of when they were a kid with Clearly Canadian? Because I will tell you my story after.
Absolutely. That has been at trade shows, on the street when I'm wearing a Clearly Canadian like hoodie or swag. The people will come up and say, like, is it back? Like, I know about this brand, and that's my childhood in a bottle. And so that we hear that time and time and time again. So I'm very curious to hear what your story is. I can share what mine is too post.
Okay, yeah. So mine was when I was a kid. So my parents were super no sugar. You weren't going to have anything. And so obviously everything I wanted was sugar based. But the one thing that I could have every weekend as my treat at the grocery store was to go in, and you had all those beautiful clear bottles and they were glass, and I could pick the flavor I wanted. Black cherry is my favorite. And it was just something I looked forward to every weekend. It brought so much joy to me as a child that when I look at the brand now, it just makes me smile.
So I love that. Love hearing that. What kind of from your, like, what was it because it was a treat to you, or was it because of, and I'm only probing because I hear different things where consumers will share it had some like cachet or badge appeal, like the cool factor, and then others it's just about the total sensorial experience of, the intensity of the flavor, the bubbles, the glass bottle. But yeah, I'm curious if you had some other kind of experiences that were a little bit more in that direction.
Yeah. So for me, it was because it was in a glass bottle. It was those individual glass bottles and they were all lined up. And I think it was probably the marketing. We were both marketers, like the marketing of it all. It was just there. And before I knew anything, it was like the empowerment as a child to have some matter of choice at the grocery store. And then to have something cool, like it was a glass bottle. It was a beautiful bottle. You would open it. I think it was the experience of the packaging.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I loved, like I said, black cherry is my favorite. So I did really like the flavor of it, but I think it was that just entire package that made it feel special for me
Mm-hmm.
when I was. Okay, tell me your story.
So mine was similar in that you had choices of pop, like Coke and Pepsi, or I think New York seltzers were kind of like a thing starting to emerge at that time. But it was the fruit flavors, it was the glass bottle, and just the intensity of the flavor that made it. And I think I talked to Heather about this when we were in Ohio. And I discovered it at a Kroger, and I said, I'm like, how do they get this to taste so good? So that, yeah, that experience where it was something so different than drinking a Coke or a Pepsi, and just having it, be an elevated experience. To your point, it was special, and that it was a treat when I'd go out for lunch, or with my mom and dad. It was kind of like a family thing too. Like, we all got to enjoy this Clearly Canadian. And I know it sounds weird to say now, but maybe I didn't put as much weighting on it back then. But there was a bit of pride too, like Clearly Canadian. Like it was just, it had a nice image to it.
Okay, so it's pretty cool that you are now CMO of Clearly Canadian. But if we take a step back, what did you want to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be a doctor.
What?
I loved muscles and bones and like just I thought I would go into something in the medicine field. My dad was a large animal vet, so I think there was somewhere in the genes about just medicine. And then it was my brother that actually he's 3 years older than me, very entrepreneurial, business minded. And when I was trying to figure out what to do post secondary, he's like, you can never go wrong with a business degree. He said, you can own like a medical clinic or something. And so fast forward to first year Laurier and was taking psychology classes, which I had not been exposed to in high school, and fell in love with the whole science and you know, of psychology with a business degree. So which that kind of leaped forward to now the consumer behavior side of marketing and business was really kind of the sweet spot.
Okay, so take me back a little bit. So you're in university, you've made the decision you're going to do business. I love all the way you already threw in that I could just own a business. So you just like layered that in. Like that's a huge perspective, which is amazing. So you're walking out of this. How did you make a decision that you weren't going to just start your own business versus you were going to go work for some tech companies, or where did you go?
So I started at Unilever coming out of university, and actually it was my fourth year prof in marketing that really inspired me. She was her name's Sharon McLeod, call out, and she just spoke so highly about the CPG industry. And I think back in early 2000s there was a lot of like great training and development with post second or post university grads. Like P&G was known as a hotbed, PepsiCo was known as a hotbed, and so same with Unilever. So this idea of like continued learning, being part of like an organization that has strong brands like Dove, and so I pursued CPG more so to continue to learn and grow versus being in my 20s and thinking I can go start a business and build it from there. But I think it's always stayed with me as far as the choices I've made in my career, that I'm drawn to experiences where I can shape a brand or shape a business, build a team, and have that entrepreneurial drive, yet have the support and resourcing behind, a CPG or a bigger organization.
Okay, so when you started, what area of marketing were you in? Did you pick that area, or was it just like I needed to get a job to get started?
I definitely focused on brand. So coming out of school, the whole curiosity about consumer behavior and why people buy what they buy. And I mean, this is well before even like social media and the generation of what it is today for marketing in the digital space. So I was really curious about brands and consumers at that point, and the opportunity with Unilever working on some established brands. It was again more executionally focused when you're joining a company like that big of an organization. It was assistant brand manager, so I think I was just really hungry to continue to learn. And Unilever was great for training. They would send their junior teams down to New York, and we'd have offsite a week training of defining a consumer insight and insight to action and action to strategy. And so that foundation, I think, was really, a special time to kind of just augment what I had learned in university to in application in real time. So,
Okay, so I'm curious. Market, when you think marketing today, I'm thinking social media, I'm thinking all these digital ads, and thinking retargeting and cookies and all this stuff. What was brand marketing back then?
it was, I'd say, more truly foundational, grounded in the consumer, um, positioning, brand architecture. Yes, there was communication strategy, but it was definitely a different environment, I would say. You have your above the line, TV, out of home, radio, newspaper, like print, like very traditional means. And I think today, that whole world has evolved tremendously in how you can target your consumer, how you can engage and build a relationship. I remember, CRM or loyalty marketing was, a hot button like 10 years back or what have you. It's like it just continues to evolve. And I'd say that's kind of part of also what choices I've made in my career with the companies that or opportunities that I've embarked on is, Skip being an interesting one because I had done a lot of time in like traditional brand architecture work, portfolio management at Canadian Tire, building own brands from, legacy 85-year-old MotoMaster to how is it being relevant today to a next generation. So a lot of brand identity positioning work. And then, but I was realizing like I haven't really done a lot of like the digital end to end. What's that consumer journey in tech? And so that was some of the choices there to say, I'm going to make this leap at this point in my career because I want to learn again. And that's not always, an easy thing to do, especially as you're getting more senior in your career. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to learn and build your toolbox, especially in the marketing function.
Okay, you've got to tell me about that. So you've been working for a company, you're seeing success, and then you have a pivotal moment. You decide that you're going to pivot, you're going to move into tech. What was happening? And can you share us a little bit like what was happening and then what were the reasons why you moved?
So after 6 years with Canadian Tire, really transformed the own brand portfolio, had the opportunity to grow and establish a sizable team, up to 20 members of the team, build a high performance culture for that team. And the challenge with Canadian Tire is it is a very matrixed organization, and a lot of their divisions are subject expert deep. And so for me, it was kind of okay, I've renovated every brand in my portfolio, I've built a team. I want to understand, what else, what can I do next? And explored those opportunities with Canadian Tire. But the reality was what I was looking to gain and experience in this digital kind of end-to-end space. There was others there that actually had more of the experience and expertise than I did at that time. So started to explore outside of the organization. Skip was interesting, just, the whole delivery space, Skip being a Canadian company and having, a growth opportunity. And so that really is kind of what drove me down the path of tech, where I could see, I joined the company as head of partner and partnership marketing, which I had done in my past as far as transferable skills at PepsiCo, sponsorships, joint partnerships within food service. So there was a lot of kind of parallels that I could draw from. But then I did actually learn quite a bit just as far as performance marketing and retargeting and the ongoing nature of always on in that digital space versus a Canadian Tire where it's a little bit more methodical in the planning cycle. And so just even that adjustment itself was a great learning.
Okay, did you have a moment where you left and you started a new job and you're doing something new now where you thought, "Oh my gosh, like what am I doing?" Did you feel overwhelmed? Like what was that like?
Between Canadian Tire and Skip?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a huge change.
it's a big change. And I should give my husband a call out because again, these decisions in career are not made in isolation, and I think it's really important to, you know, reinforce that it was a life change for us or career. We took the risk to make that leap, but he also recognized that that I'm kind of driven by that ongoing learning and journey in my career. But yeah, I would say it was coming in. I had in the first 6 months an interim CEO, a new CEO, and two different bosses within 6 months. So it was I was coming into the organization at a time of tremendous change at a leadership standpoint. So that even I underestimated just the roller coaster ride of what that would entail as you're establishing yourself and learning a new industry and way of marketing. So
Can you tell us a little bit about that conversation with you and your husband, like that struggle, the dilemma? What was in your mind? Like, what were you processing and weighing to make that decision?
Great question. I'm trying to reflect now. Um, I think it comes down to or came down to growth, and he's a big supporter of me and my career, but also continuing to lead by example for our kids. To also, I think there's aspects of taking risk in your career to learn and grow that maybe staying in one organization for too long, you kind of get stale, like or you just lose your passion for continued learning. I can't say I was losing my passion for learning at CT. It was just more of a challenging environment to achieve, where I wanted to learn and grow. Was it a decision made lightly? No. Leaving a stable organization like Canadian Tire to go to a tech company that's in a hyper competitive environment, when you think of, the role between Uber Eats, DoorDash, and then Skip, it's super competitive. And so I appreciate that he supported that decision. We agreed it may not be a forever place to, lay roots, but we're going to take this risk together, and he supported that. So,
Did any of that decision involve like a change of dynamics for you or a move? Did you have to move houses? Like how did that affect your life around the decision you were making for your career?
yeah, didn't have to move. It was a bit of a shift in commute. So, Canadian Tire head office, Yonge and Egg. We live in the west end of Mississauga, so it was always a long commute. But Skip was right downtown. Took the GO train in, walking distance. We were hybrid, so I think having a little bit of flexibility to work from home and then be in the office, that was a nice transition. But overall, it was more of just a shift in working environment, and starting point of, where do you add value right away to an industry where you're learning, but you can bring your own value from or experience from past job opportunities or job experience that is transferable skills.
Okay, but you didn't even end there. From Skip, you kept learning. So tell me more. What was next?
So what was next was Clearly, and that opportunity to come into the organization. It's private equity based, very, I'd say, entrepreneurial environment, startup, another kind of build phase. So as I mentioned, taking a legacy brand and innovating and evolving it to be relevant to the next generation of consumers is really, a fun challenge to have. And knowing that there's so much affinity and emotional connection to the legacy consumer for this brand, how we build that for the next generation is really what I'm excited to unlock.
That is so cool. Okay, so it sounds like you've just, as everybody pivots in their careers, at least for me, I've pivoted several times, and there are many times I'm like, yeah, I really loved those pivots, but I have opportunities that I said no to that I regret. And I'm like, that was a wrong decision. In your journey, do you have any decisions that you think were wrong?
If I reflect on my experience and the different companies I've worked for, some have been shorter time and role than I thought I would be. One would be Nando's. I loved the organization. Nando's has, as a brand, so much purpose and layers to it. The storytelling, you know, born from the beaches of South Africa. I learned so much in that role about having a brand with purpose and the impact that that can have. The global marketing team leaders, part of that team, amazing. Learned so much from them. They all brought in different perspectives from all their different markets. So I think that role, surprised in that the exposure I received to, thought leaders across different markets and marketing gurus. I think the challenge with that role was, and a learning, I think, for those that might be at different points in their personal life, I had my kids, Cole and Ava, were 5 and 3 at the time, and I was traveling all over the world, which sounds glamorous, but when you are a mom and you're balancing, personal life with career, ultimately it was just the right opportunity at the wrong time in my personal life with realizing, doing uh, virtual homework with my daughter at 3 in the morning Dubai time. And she's like, Mommy, why is it dark where you are? And it's bright where I am. And, so I think it wasn't that I have any regret. I think it's an important takeaway as you think about the roles that you take on in your career to say, well, it's not just about the job. It's not just about the company. It's also about how does this fit into your lifestyle and what trade-offs are you able or willing to make or not. And so I think the Nando's experience for me taught me a lot of just balancing career ambition and opportunity to progress my career with not at the expense of things that I'm missing out with my kids, especially with how young they were at that time.
I so agree. I think as someone who is also equally ambitious and have always decided very early on that I was going to the top. And I think sometimes you think the trajectory must go straight up at all times or else I'm not achieving. But when you have kids and you just have, or you begin to have different decisions you're making and lifestyle starts coming into it. And I don't mean lifestyle like not working, I'm going to go do yoga, but I'm still like integrating things into your work. How that trajectory looks shifts and changes. So was that the pivotal moment for you when you were doing homework with your daughter?
Yeah, it was one of many in that time. There's also, traveling to South Africa and thinking, wow, like my kids like have a safe environment to grow up in. Like there was just a lot of things that I would say with that time with the company um, that I reflected on, and that other jobs to date, were really more central to Canada. And that international exposure, I think, really was eye-opening of, what's important to me personally. And so it became, a very reflective time in my career to then open the door to joining Canadian Tire. I wanted to be with a Canadian company and be a little bit more anchored, knowing that the kids were young and needing, to balance that as well. And yet having this, great opportunity to renovate the own brand portfolio and take on that challenge. So I think some people will look at their resume and say, well, you were only at that company for whatever, a year and a half, whatever, a short period of time. Why did you leave? And I think there's tends to be scrutiny on that versus why stay longer if it's not working for you? And so being able to articulate what you take away from a role or an organization and how's that shaping you for the next opportunity is something I would encourage people to think about, because sometimes we do take those chances in our career or opportunities in our career, and we can only ask what we know going in, the right questions in an interview, meeting as many people in the organization and doing that assessment. But sometimes when you get into it, things are very different. So, or it's not what you expected, or life changes. So I think, I'm not, I think not to say pride myself on it, but I am proud of making choices and changes or pivots when I've needed to. And every single opportunity creates a new learning.
I love that. I think that's so important for everybody to really, really sit down and think that through. Okay, but you are a leader. So you are seeing people with resumes and you are then seeing people with shorter time frames, longer time frames of different companies. Is that something you're looking for when you're building your team?
Not necessarily looking for, but I think I'm seeking to understand around what happened in that role. And I think maybe that's some of the empathy that I bring to conversations with talent, looking at the hard skills, the soft skills, them personally, how they articulate what their ambitions are in their career. And I would just say I put less weighting on looking at time in role and really trying to understand what did they take away from it, and what choices or what decision did they make that they were looking to leave or move to a different opportunity. People being honest and genuine versus trying to, be pitchy and selling of their experience. I really try and look for that humbleness, that authenticity of how people can admit, hey, it wasn't the right opportunity for me, or this experience led me here. That to me, I think, goes a long way.
I agree. So I actually, when I interview people, I usually get them to tell me a story, like something about them, because in the world of, I mean, AI, everything is starting to look perfect, like picture perfect. And you're like, how could I not hire this person? But it's only when you really start asking them questions and getting them to really talk that you can hear so much. Okay, tell me what are some of your interview strategies? I need some tips.
Oh, great question. Interview strategies. Well, first, I like to make them a conversation. And so, make someone comfortable from the start. So it's not a interview per se. Get to know them on, somewhat of a, not to say personal level, but, even ask, how was your weekend? Or like, just kind of make them comfortable so that they open up. Um, I've always prided, even from building a team, around creating a safe environment. So the way to do that too is just being honest also with how you show up. And no one's perfect in this world. We all have our faults, and we all have our, authentic way. So I think, creating it as a conversation. I think some of even the questions you've asked about, like, where have you made taken a leap of faith in your career or personal life, and it depends on what level you're interviewing at. In more junior roles, I hear a lot of, sports analogies or, things that they did at school, involved in clubs, and then trying to kind of peel back the onion a bit there of like, well, what drew you to that, and what did you learn, and what inspired you to take that path. And then with the experiences, I always find it interesting how people will either story tell through their experiences, and it's very scripted, versus I want to tell you about this that really, I feel like I made an impact to a brand or a business or a team. And so not doing the laundry list of this is everything I've done. Well, what have you taken away from it, and how does it continue to build you as an employee, as a leader, as a marketer, and having passionate about what you love to do, I think is really important. It's not just about I need this job. It's I want to this role or this opportunity really excites me, and here's what I want to bring to it.
I love that. So, okay, flipping back to you then for a second in your pivots and in your interviews, when you look back at, let's say, each one of those final interviews for each one of those jobs, like, how do you feel they went? Was there one that stood out for you that you're like, yep, nailed that one, that one's for me? Or have you ever been in an interview where you thought you were going to go for the job, and then at the end you're like, actually, this doesn't really fit for me? Like, have you ever had any of those that stand out?
They're all slightly different, but one that I thought was really interesting, and again, I'll go back to it as being a unique organization, was Nando's. In the final round of interviews, I was flown to the UK. I had a 5-hour psychology assessment, which, when you have jet lag and you're trying to show up, your authentic self, but with energy, there was, and having a psychology background, I was like, okay, what, am I over trying to think these questions, and, having a bit of brain fog from jet lag. But what was interesting, I appreciated in that organization was, they shared the output of that psychological assessment, and how it would shape me as a leader, and why I was selected, and, and what they saw through that assessment that really was adding to their culture and adding to the type of leader that they were looking for. So I'd say that was probably the most intense interview process that I went through, just from it being different than just across the board, like meeting various individuals and everyone having, maybe a bit of a rubric or such to evaluate talent. But yeah, I think I learned a lot about myself in that whole process. And yeah, I'm not sure if that overtly answers the question, but it stands out in my mind as being something that I had not gone through before, but really appreciated that I did.
Okay, I'm going to add another layer because I think I remember hearing you say that the kids were young when you were there, right? And as someone who worked through without kind of maternity leave and had the kids, like I remember having pivotal moments when not only did you travel, but you've also come from whatever you were dealing with at home, going into that plane, going into that, like there's more to it than just the plane ride. Do you ever look back and think like, how did I do this?
You know what? I do, and I would even say COVID, like before we could work from home. So, or before work from home was as established as what it is. I used to, yeah, I reflect on that quite a bit to say, wow, like dropping the kids off at, you know, preschool, whatever class before they had their day, and then scrambling to get back and having the energy to do it all. I still to this point go, either I'm just really getting old and have no energy. I'm kidding. Or it's like when you're in it, you're in it and you figure it out. And I think that's just kind of like a drive that you have for your family, for your job. And it's a lot to balance, but it's you know, what we do, I guess, as parents, working parents. Um, but yeah, it's I think about that with maybe a bit of a silver lining with COVID and what it's taught us, what technology can enable and support, and we can be productive working from home and getting a little bit more balance in our life.
Do you think balance shifts and changes as you like? Do you think like when I first started working and especially as I moved from kind of being a fintech founder and exiting and then moving into a really large organization, it all kind of shifted and changed for me. And I still don't know whether that was because my kids were at different ages. We were literally living in a different country. It was just a whole different life as it is today for me. Like, where was that moment? Like, do you have anything like that?
I feel like that just chalks up what life is.
Well, yeah, probably.
I mean, it's I would say it's not easy. And anyone that would say that it is, I would love to meet you and have a conversation. But it's not. I mean, and I think it's a lot to juggle, it's a lot to balance. I think especially not especially, but just anyone, you know, trying to build a career, being a senior executive, and I would say even in, you know, my current world where you now have a board that you need to, you know, manage. And again, great experience, great opportunity. But you have to, I think that agility and ability to pivot is really important, both with balancing life and family and kids, because that always is ever evolving and changing, and how they need you is evolving and changing. And, you know, so are the different, you know, work experiences and work environments. Some, you know, I'd say Clearly Canadian being a very small team, Canadian Tire, a very large team. And so the how I've had to adjust and pivot from being, you know, in the weeds to leading and guiding and influencing to clearly it's I'm in the weeds and I'm doing all of that. Like it's having a small team. So I think those environments, as you as individuals evaluate and explore what's right for them, I think it is really kind of looking internally first to say, like, what do you want? Like, what's your North Star and what your career? And this might be a stepping stone to your end. It may not be, you know, the whole way there, but back to your point, is it a ladder? Is it kind of more of a zigzag? I think that's really kind of to each their own based on how they're wired and how they're driven and what their personal situation is.
Yeah, and things do keep evolving moving forward also. So if this moment right now was a chapter in your life and you had a whole book of life, what would the name of that chapter be?
Oh my. Transition. And I say that because, well, my daughter is 16, going on 7. So we're now in the stage of exploring university options, and the first child, like, you know, potentially, well, not potentially, I anticipate she's going to leave the house, but flying the coop and, spreading her wings. And so, as a mom and as a parent, that's a transition, and how I support her in that journey. And even thinking how our family will adjust to being yes, we're a family of four, but in the house, a family of three. And so I think just the anticipation of knowing that that's coming is again transition, and I'm excited for that chapter for her. And then as I think about for my son, he just turned 15. He's also kind of pushing, starting grade 9, the high school years. And so I think I'm balancing again as a mom around being there for my kids, especially with where they are in their journey and the exciting chapters that are, and kind of the unknown territory, right? Like, my daughter is like trying to explore a bunch, like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? And how do you help give them some guidance, but they're growing to be independent, humans, that these are the life choices that you're starting to make, and that's also no different than choices you're going to make in your career. So I think transition, and again, Clearly Canadian is in a ton of transition as well, because we're scaling and growing, and a lot of transformation that's happening within the business. So,
Okay, last critical question, which you didn't answer. What is your favorite flavor of Clearly Canadian?
my favorite is mountain blackberry. It's unique. It's a pretty unique flavor to the brand, but I do have heart for all the flavors. But mountain blackberry has a little sweet spot in my heart.
Oh, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think it was such an important message for everybody to hear, and to hear the journey and the process of the different changes and iterations you've made in your career as you move forward. So thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, Heather, come on in here. It's time for our gut check. Okay, that was a great conversation with Jen.
Jen's incredible.
Oh my gosh, do you ever find, because she's like a CMO title, I do find that when I talk to someone with a C-suite title, I instantly feel a little nervous. Do you?
Well, I feel nervous because I have zero experience in the corporate world. So anything, even VP, C-suite, like, it's all a little out of my realm. But I find them fascinating. And I love the CMO podcast.
Okay, cool. And he has a super cool story. But I just want, highlighting to people who are making career decisions, getting into a C-suite and getting a C-suite title. If you think about like how many jobs there are out there, titles. And then, okay, within marketing, how many titles there are. And then of marketing, how many levels of leadership you can move up to. And there's only one CMO in an organization. I think it just makes her so cool that she has moved her way up, not only in different organizations, but through titles, and done different areas of marketing, and always seen success for the brand. Just speaks so much to how incredible she is.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. And I'm not, like I said, I don't have corporate experience. So you guys talked about it in the interview, but it's like, it's not a straight line, right? Like, you start here and then you just move your way up to CMO. Boop, boop, boop. Everybody does it. Like, it's just not how it works, right?
Yeah, most people don't do it. At least from my experience and just from different readings, like a lot of people move into leadership, right? And you have to want to. I mean, not everybody does, and that's okay. But if you're choosing that kind of corporate ladder and saying whatever area or division I want to work in, you generally want to move to a certain level. And it's not easy because there's still going to be fewer VPs of a larger organizations, considering there's someone on top. But the higher and higher you go, like the fewer and fewer people there are. And those seats don't even open up very often. I mean, think about it. If you have a C-suite spot, are you really going to leave those positions? I mean, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but they're not like there's a dozen of them out there that are posted every day.
Yeah.
So Jen has some really cool stories, and I wanted to really highlight, and I thought what was most impressive is she wasn't afraid to not only learn about different areas of marketing, and she talked about that in the interview, but she also wasn't afraid to change, even though it was all CPG, but they're very different companies she worked for. I mean, she talked about, I know she is now at Clearly Canadian, but she talked through Canadian Tire, Nando's, Skip, those are all very different companies with different scopes. And she seemed to just pivot from one to the next. What did you think about that?
Sounded exhausting. As much as I'm someone who likes change, I kind of thrive in it, but it's change that is like organized. So I don't know. It seems like, again, I go back to, if I had the big job, I don't know that I would. There must be something driving you to like move to something else, whether that's like your purpose or you want to learn something new, or like what drives that if you already have a big job somewhere.
Yeah. And then what drives you to say, okay, I've got that. And now I'm going to keep growing? Because it's so easy to get into something that's complacent and you're just good at it and you just keep being good at it. Now, I have to say, I mean, that's not you, that's not me, and certainly that's not Jen, where we just kind of sit. Clearly, that's kind of the joke, is that we have kind of evolved, and so I can connect with her that way. But one thing I thought was interesting was when she made a pivot to Skip, which was more, I would say, yes, it's in that food industry, but it's very much a tech company.
Yeah.
Have you heard that when you're talking to different people, like that real pivot of industry for somebody?
Well, and is it just something like that you just want to learn something new? Because it would be such a learning curve, right? To just move to a new industry.
New industry, but just she would have, and again, these are my assumptions, but I mean, you're in a tech startup environment. Those are very fast paced, very competitive. You're pivoting so quickly as the market is shifting and evolving. And if you or I, or probably many of our listeners, are thinking through that product, I mean, how many times have you used some of those things? And your demand for that product is shifting and evolved. If you think about what Skip is today and what Skip was 3 years ago, it's a different company. I can't imagine how fast that would be. And this is me speaking, but compared to a brand like Canadian Tire, which is like a staple. And
Like a
and I
legacy
don't,
brand.
yeah. I mean, I don't know the insides of that organization, but I would imagine it's not as fast paced as a tech company.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know either space, but that seems like a valid assumption.
And so, do you think that when people are making decisions about careers and they're thinking about industries, I mean, she talked about marketing and she talked about different areas of marketing, but the fact that I think the way marketing would be perceived or valued, again, my assumption, but how it would be valued in a tech company versus like loyalty marketing, brand
Mm,
recognition marketing, and something like Canadian Tire. To me, it's marketing, but those are two different
yeah.
areas. Okay, when you did marketing, what are some of the pieces that what areas did you really like?
So again, I didn't come up in corporate. So I was a jack of all trades. I worked in a company where there was one marketing person and you just figured it out and you did all the things. And we were scrappy. We weren't a startup, we weren't tech, anything like that. But it was like, this is something new we need to learn. You just have to go figure out how to do it. And so I've always been curious for people who are in those corporate spaces where you like focus on one aspect of it. Like I don't know how that even looks. I was the jack of all trades where I was.
So you actually have a
Probably
lot of
master of
skills.
none.
Like you're not giving yourself enough credit because
Well, I
that's
shouldn't say that,
amazing
but
that you do it
like
all.
it's you get to dabble in everything, but you
Yeah.
don't get great at anything.
Yeah. Okay, one thing that I would have pushed back on, I think, if we did the interview again, and I get that she talked to the story about traveling, and I think that was with Nando's. She was talking about how yeah, she got to travel and sound like she got to go to some all sorts of cool places. And she's like, it's not as glamorous as you think. I think when you have young children when they're little, it is not glamorous. But as someone whose kids are a bit older, it's fantastic.
But I also think that's your personality, right? Like you like to be going and doing and going and doing and going and doing. Like I
Yes.
think it depends on your personality.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I totally relate to her in terms of when they're little, I felt super guilty. I always felt terrible. They're crying when you get home. You're crying when you leave. They're crying on the phone with you because they want your time and you just feel so guilty. I mean, I can relate to that with her. Absolutely. But my kids these days, it's more like maybe it's because they're used to it because I am
Mm.
gone a lot. and they're just like, it's just part of what mommy does maybe, and that's different, and they've gotten used to it, but they're not, I mean, nobody's crying when I leave or come home anymore.
Do you love that travel aspect though?
I love that travel, yes. Now, I am also like her, I'm very fortunate that I get to go to what I consider pretty cool places. I think if there were some travel, some people, you don't get the choice for one, or maybe you're ending up in some pretty small towns, and I'm not sure I would enjoy that as much. I know I'm very privileged in my opportunities of my ability to select where I'm going and also to go to some pretty fun cities. I mean, who's going to say no to that? And I love it. I also find, like, on an airplane or in an airport, I am incredibly efficient with so many tasks I have to do. And there are times when I literally feel like, oh my gosh, I want to be on a trip because I can be so focused and I can pound out so much work in an airport or on an airplane for whatever reason. Best
Because
speech
you're
ever
stuck
written
there.
on a
You
plane.
can't leave.
Is that it?
I don't
What are you
know.
like when you're on a plane or in an airport?
Because I don't travel for work, right? We have very different lives. I don't travel for work. So if I'm on an airplane, I'm going on vacation. And so I don't get a lot of work done. But I also am like, I am a pretty focused person. Like I sit down at my desk early in the morning and until someone comes and tells me it's time for dinner, I'm still working. I
So
think
if you
partially
were
just
working on a plane, you wouldn't get off the plane. You'd be like,
yeah, like
"Oh my
well
god,
again, I
okay,
don't
let's
know what
roll."
it would be like if I traveled for work. I just have never experienced it.
I don't know, but there are lots of people though that have to travel. I agree with you when you say like not everybody likes it because they don't. And there's some people that aren't efficient on a plane or on an airplane. Like they need, like, to me, I don't need it to be quiet. I don't need isolation around me to work. But I don't know, there's something creative for me. I can solve problems more. I don't know. It's my spot.
But I also think, don't you think it's the life you've built, right? So you've trained
Mhm.
yourself to be good at that, right? I have people all the time that are like, "How do you not want to go into the office?" And I've had people that work with we're fully remote, right? So people that have worked with me, they're like, "I just want to go to the office," and I never. That's just not where I'm strong, or I don't think I'm strong like socially and networking wise. So I'm like, I'm just a person that gets stuff done, and so I can do that on my own. But in the office setting, I'm like, not so much.
Well, that's a big debate, though. I would say that I don't think there's a lot of efficiencies of people working in the office. And I mean, that's a whole hot topic that we should discuss. Do you really need to be in an office to be productive or not? And I think there's a few points of view on that. One is, well, this was the way it was, so it must be great, and we need to take it back to it. And then the second part is, well, collaboration and then socializing, like, oh, well, it's to socialize. And I think in all three of those instances, I could argue why those aren't the reasons why somebody should be in the office and we don't really need to be there. But like to your point, I can get work done in a very loud, open space, and I don't necessarily need that structure of an environment to do work. And just like you, I can sit on a couch and get really zoomed into something. And, sure enough, it's like 3 in the morning. And I'm like, oopsies, I need to go to bed.
Yeah.
I think some people need that structure maybe at work. I don't know.
Well, and I do think it's part of like building the muscle, right? If I traveled all the time, then I would probably get really good at it. I'd get good at packing, I'd get good at getting to the airport, like all of the things that, not saying that's an easy life, but I just, because I don't do it all the time, I'm like, oh, that seems like a big job.
Yeah. Okay. As you've gotten older, even if it's for pleasure for travel, how are you with time changes?
I'm a good sleeper. It's like a superpower. And so I don't really have a problem with it because I can sleep, like I could sleep standing up, I could sleep on an airplane, like I can sleep anywhere.
Oh, I wish I can't sleep on an airplane.
Oh, I can sleep anywhere.
Oh, doesn't your
I fell
neck
asleep at a
hurt?
concert once when we first started dating. We went to a concert and I was so tired. We had great seats and I was just like out. And
Oh
to
my
this
gosh.
day, like 20 years later, he's like, "Remember when you fell asleep?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm tired. I'm tired.
Well, he obviously took you to another date to another concert.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was okay. Yeah, I don't have that. Like, if you mean like no drugs to make you fall asleep. You're just, I can just close my eyes and I'm out kind of thing. Even in a car?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Do you always sleep in the car?
I
On a
don't
trip?
always sleep in the car, and I'm better because I think it's rude not like, again, when we're out and then it's a long drive home, he's like waking me up when we get home. So, but I try not to be a terrible passenger, but I do. I could sleep in the car. I could sleep anywhere. So the time changes, things like that wouldn't affect me.
Yeah, so I do notice for my work that time changes are affecting me more than they ever did. And that is definitely something when I was younger, I was fine. I could just pick it up because I'm an early morning person. So I find it easier to kind of pivot because you're already early morning. But I do find even an hour makes a difference and I can feel it in my body now that I never used to. Yeah, but also I wish I could sleep on a plane because that would make it more efficient when I went to do whatever I was doing next, because then I would have rested, but I cannot. I don't know. Very personal, but I also feel this is a personal Sarah take. I think I agree with you about passenger. As a passenger, it is your responsibility to be a good passenger to the driver, and you should be talking to the driver. I don't like it when people sleep. And I think it's because I probably deep down I can't. And I was like, then you can't. You need to talk to me. I don't know.
Do
I
you
like
like to be
talking.
the driver or do you like to be the passenger?
No, I like to be the passenger.
Mm.
Yeah. I am happy to book meetings in a car and I can be super efficient getting a lot done in a car also. So I can get motion sickness sitting in the back seat of a car, but I can sit at the front seat in the passenger side and work away and be totally fine. So that's probably my not being a good passenger. If you asked my husband, who usually chooses to drive, he's probably like, Sarah, you're working again, or you need to, because I'll like zone into something I'm doing and it can be hours that I'm just working on whatever. And I
Yeah.
don't know. And then
That's
it
not
feels
being
good.
an engaged passenger.
No, so I'm breaking my own rule. You can't sleep,
All the
but
skills we have to pick up.
yeah. So, I mean, what's one takeaway or one question you wish that I had asked Jen?
I've seen some pretty cool things that they've done since she moved into that role at Clearly Canadian. And so, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, like the famous people you meet when you get to do brand shoots with like Shania Twain or things like that, right? So, I don't know. I think do you get starstruck? Do you get celebrity? Is it cool? That's the part about her job.
Yeah, definitely for sure. One thing I wish I'd asked her was a little bit more of like what were memorable moments, because when you're marketing, the cool thing about marketing is the deliverables are something that's very public and they're very permanent and you can say I did that. Whereas other departments, sometimes you don't have that same ability to just, position, this is what I did. And so because she's been at so many brands that people would recognize, I wonder if she has moments where she looks back and says, at Canadian Tire, I did check that one out. This was me here. And not that it's you as I'm the only one doing this work, but just
Yeah.
what are you
But
proud of in
yeah,
terms of those memorable moments in your business? I should have asked her that.
good one. We'll have to have her back.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for chatting with me today.
Loved it.
Thanks for listening to Why to the Way. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, colleague, or someone navigating a crossroads of their own. Make sure to follow Why to the Way wherever you get your podcasts and find us on social media for more insights, updates, and conversations between episodes. Until next time, keep asking the question, what would you have done in the same situation?